Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Julia O'Hara, and I'm here with Dave Kloiber, and we're here to answer your questions about USF Housing. All right, Dave, we're here in the studio.
We are. We gotta love first day jitters.
We're back in the studio after what's been 2 years that we've been doing it online.
It's been 2 years and a complete renovation of the studio.
Renovation of the studio, new cameras, new lights. We're super excited to be here.
New cameras too.
A couple of new cameras.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we're ready. So this is a little precursor to our Housing Live season that happens in the spring. So definitely be on the lookout for the dates and topics on that. But today we're talking about two big things happening next week.
Very big.
Very big, which are spring 2023 room selection.
Yes.
That's November 14th that begins. And then the fall spring 23-24 and the summer 23 housing applications are launching on November 15th, Tuesday.
Yes, they are.
So you're not busy at all, are you?
You know, I'm going to sleep eventually.
Yeah, no. Mm-hmm. After next week when we get through this. So two really big things that are coming up that I know a lot of you have questions surrounding these two different topics. So tonight we're going to try to tackle a couple of those questions that I have pre-planned, but wherever you're watching, if you're watching on Facebook or if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to drop your questions in the comments and we'll get through as many as we can tonight throughout the show. So let's start with talking about spring room selection and availability. So we talked about it starting on the 14th. When does that end? What's the window of spring room selection?
Boy, so typically the window would be very long. Mm-hmm. Now, we've got some unique challenges this year. So the way room selection works is we allow 50 people at a time to start room selection. So at noon on Monday the 14th, the first 50 people will have their opportunity to select a room. Now, we'll tell everybody when you're selecting your room. And those emails should be going out tonight. And so after the show, once I do a few tweaks to the email, then I will send it out to the people who are ready to be assigned tonight. And so you'll have your start time. And your start time is when you can log in and then actually look to see what we have available in our inventory. Now here's the challenge. And I know it's probably one of the questions you have for me, so I'll let the cat out of the bag now. As some of you may know, we've had to put a pause on the application because we have a lot of people that want to live on campus and not a lot of rooms to offer. And so while typically room selection would go from the 14th until the end of the semester, so normally it would go until December 11th, which I believe is a Sunday, I would anticipate this year that we will run out of beds within the first 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah, so it's going to be a high demand. We're getting some questions already, so thank you everyone for watching. So Charles, we did just talk about getting the emails for the date and time for room selection. So those are hopefully going out tonight at the latest tomorrow.
Correct.
They'll be getting it to their USF email.
Yes.
So let's talk numbers, because I think that will be helpful for people to really understand what the likelihood is and maybe have some backup plans about the spring availability. So we have how many beds do you think coming available from people that are graduating or leaving the university or that sort of thing? How many do we anticipate?
So right now we're at about 99% occupancy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty high.
Yeah.
I anticipate that we're going to have, after the dust settles and people can't complete their cancellations for graduation and whatever other reasons they have, we may have about 150 to 200 beds.
Okay.
Available total. That's it.
And we have a few hundred people that are ready to select their rooms.
Right now we have
spring.
over 400 people that are ready to select a room. Mm-hmm. And we have received almost 700 plus applications at this time.
Okay.
So it's you need to have a plan. Mm-hmm. For anybody who's watching right now. Not only do we have very few beds available when you look at the overall demand, but we may not have the style that you want either. So if you're looking for a single room, those are going to be hard to find. If you're looking for an apartment style, those are going to be hard to find because that's also where most of our single rooms are. And so you want to have a plan as to what kind of room am I looking for, what kind of room can I live in, and have that predetermined so that when you're looking at what's available, you can make that determination, am I going to pick anything? If I can get anything, or am I going to be selective? If you're going to be selective, that's fine, but you may not have an opportunity after your time slot opens up.
Correct.
Especially if you're, we're going to release that 50 beds, 50 people every hour. We used to do it every half hour, but because we have very few beds right now, we're worried that people are also going to be very selective of what they're looking for, and so we're going to give that extra time. And so after the first 4 hours, that'll be the first 200 people.
Yeah.
So by 4 o'clock, we'll have 12, 1, 2, and then 3. By 4 o'clock, we may not have any beds left.
And when it comes to the actual process, Jackie's asking questions about priority. Will spring admits have priority? Will out-of-state students have priority? So, and just to, for context, just in case those that are watching aren't aware, if you are a current student living on campus in a fall-spring term agreement, you do not need to participate in spring room selection.
Correct.
Because
If you
your
already have a
agreement
room, you're
already,
good.
yeah, if you're in a room right now, that already includes your spring term. If you are a spring admit or are choosing to live on campus for the spring, we do have spring-only agreements, and that's what we're talking about today for that room selection. So for priority, I guess let's talk about what that process looks like. Are there certain student populations that do have priority, or is it based on when you submitted your application and paid your application fee?
It's based on when you applied and really actually when you completed your application, so paid your application fee. So we look at that date first, and then we look at if we need a tiebreaker, for instance, then we look at the date that you actually submitted your application.
Okay.
So I know, based on the information that I was running today, 68 people paid their application fee the same day they applied, which was all on 9/1, the day the application opened, and their orientation is yes. So they've done everything they need to do, and so they're the first 68 people on the list.
Okay. And just to be clear, too, a question from Claire, if we're guaranteed housing by November 14th if we submitted before the pause on applications.
Well, she used the G word.
Yeah.
I can't use the G word. That would be, can you say it?
I just did when I read the question,
Yeah, you
but it
did,
didn't come
so
from me. But
was
to
hard.
repeat the question, are we guaranteed housing by November 14th if we submit before the pause? And I think just based,
don't.
yeah, the
We don't.
availabilities.
I mean, you already know that there are 700 applications and 200 available beds right now. So obviously, we can't guarantee that everybody who applied before the pause is going to be able to get a room.
Right, but the fact that they did apply before the pause is obviously a good sign because it did need to pause
At least
very
gives
early.
you a chance. So what will happen after that is we're going to go to a standby process, and more information will follow about that probably on Tuesday, if not Monday evening, on the 14th or the 15th, to explain more about that. I wish I had more beds available. I can't build a building that fast, even if I could. And so it's just that we are maxed out. We have closed every tour room that we can close. We have no more emergency spaces on campus. So when we have an issue, we're trying to be very creative on how we can respond to issues that we have on campus. We have little room for people to move around. They tell me it's a great problem to have.
Right, but of course, Dave, your team works really, really hard to be able to answer all the questions and satisfy the requests of everyone that wants to live on campus. So it is a hard problem to have. And we'll talk a little bit about setting yourself up for success for the fall, spring, and summer terms. And what that looks like is really just getting all of your items done early, submitting your application early, paying the application fee, and doing all of those steps. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in the broadcast. But we're getting some particular comment or questions about what room selection looks like and what you can see when you select a room. So I think what we'll do next, if technology allows, is jump into a demo for what to expect for spring room selection. So
certainly do that.
Right now we have 2022 spring room selection set up. So
Right.
walk us through what to expect when you are assigned your time. Let's say, for example, we have a question from Claire. If I have a 12 o'clock room assignment, I will have confirmation as soon as I submit. So let's look at it from a 12 o'clock.
Sure.
You have your appointment to go in and select a room. What does that look like?
So when it's your time to go in, you can go to the housing portal, and let me see if I can pull up what this will look like. This is everything that happens behind the scenes.
Yeah, this is not what you will see.
No, you will not normally see this, but I want to try to be as descriptive as possible, and I just hit the wrong button. Not good. Let me get back out of that.
And Caitlin, to answer your question, does this include fall 2023 applications? Right now, we're specifically talking about
Right.
spring 23 room selection. The fall room selection for 23 will happen in the spring next year. So right now, we're just talking about spring.
Correct. So we're going to go back to the screen here, and it's loading. And
Any chance we have any single suites this spring? Question
No.
from Vaishali. Nope.
no, once people move into that, they typically don't
Right.
move out unless there's an issue.
Or graduation, maybe.
Yeah. All right, so that didn't help me. So here we are with spring room selection. When you go to the housing portal and it's your turn, you'll be able to click on the assign button, and it will take you into the room selection landing page, and you'll be able to proceed from there. The room selection landing page will show you your application status, and then you'll scroll down to the bottom to see the assign button again, and you'll click on that. But if you read the page, you'll see everything you need to see. So once you click that assign button, it's going to take you into what you see here. It'll be updated for spring 2023. And it's the welcome message. This is what you're doing. You're applying for spring 20, or you're assigning yourself for the spring of 2023. It will be, this says 22. Then you'll hit continue. And of course, there's an error that occurred. So let's try that one more time. Because I'm using a Mac, it's an interesting
Don't blame it on
for
the
me.
Mac, Dave.
Too late, already did. All right, oh, there we go. It didn't like the fact that I have two instances of the same window open, so I'm going to close that one and continue with this one. So here we are. It says this is the term that you're going to assign yourself for. You have to, it's already selected for you, so there's no confusion there. Here's where it gets interesting. So this is where we suggest you review our hall rates by clicking the link here. And then it gives you tips on how to select your room. And so you'll see you have search result tips and how to see, do you want the visual view or do you want a list view? Then it'll explain some of the other screens about if you want to see details about your room, you can click on the active links. And I'll show you what this looks like in just a minute. It also shows you how to see information about your roommate.
And that was a question
Potential.
earlier, yeah, from Fino, one of our first questions. Will we have a choice in both roommates and dorms? So this shows you a little bit about the person that's in that room.
Choice is an interesting word.
Right,
Because
well.
obviously you're limited by your availability. However, you'll be able to get information about the people who are living there in terms of the 6 questions on the application. You won't get their name, but you will at least get the 6 questions. And then it also shows you, this is how you can search for information. So by unit, we mean what kind of room is it? Is it an apartment, a suite, or a traditional room? Bedroom type, it's going to be single, double, triple. Bedroom style, that would be a suite or an apartment, I believe. Well, I'll double check. Kitchen and unit, yes or no, and then room type description. If you know the exact room type that you're looking for, you can also search by that. Once you review all that, you can, and if you feel comfortable, you can just keep going. All of this information, by the way, we have plenty of videos about it. We've had past FAQ or Q&As, and we also have a video on just how to do this.
In a demo, yeah, to show.
So once we are okay with this page, we can click continue, and this is where we get to really search. Now, this number may not be all that far off. We have 23. That's how many beds we had available after room selection last year for men.
Got it.
Okay, so we have the map view, and on the map view, you can see that there's an area with a green box. There are other areas with a green box. Any area with a green box has a bed that might be available for you. So that's if you want to look by map. Now let's say I want to be in an apartment. I want my own bedroom. I want a private bathroom. Now I'll tell you right now, this combination does not exist on our campus. And I'm going to search, and I'm going to come up with 0 results down here. 0 results. What that means is what I'm searching for does not exist. Or if it did exist, there are none left. Now, when we get to the point where we run out of beds, this is something that you might see.
Right.
No beds available. Doesn't mean the software is broken. It just means that more than likely there aren't any beds available at that point.
And at this point, if I'm going into this saying I'm not picky about what type of room I'm in, I just would like to be in any room available. Can you reset your search and just see everything that is available?
You can just click reset search.
And this shows you everything that
and there
is
it goes.
available.
Everything that's available again. Now, if you, like I said, if you do put in some parameters, single bedroom, shared bathroom.
Right.
It's shared within the unit, and do my search. I'm going to come up with a few beds here. I have some in Cypress Maple Complex, which would be Cypress Apartments, C and D. I have some in Holly, and then some in Magnolia. Now remember, these are spring of 22.
Right.
Don't think that when you log in on Monday, if you're in the first group, you're going to see these rooms. It's different for 2023. Now, I can either click on one of these items here on the side menu, or I can actually scroll over and look for all the areas. Whoops, it's a Mac, I'm not used to it. Anywhere with a green box. So down here's a green box, here's a green box, and here's a green box. Why? Because that's where all the apartments are. So I can click on Cypress, and here I am again. I've got some red boxes. I can't really get anything there, but ooh, there are the green boxes. So, Cypress C is near the road, so maybe I want to do Cypress D. But there's only one bed available in Cypress D. It happens to be on the only floor with a green box, which is the first floor. And now we're in the nitty-gritty of the map. So here we are, we have a map. We can get information about who lives in the room by clicking on
the red box. Yeah.
The red bed icon. And look, lo and behold, we can see that they're a non-smoker. They would prefer a non-smoking roommate. They say they're neat. Now, if your parents are filling this out for you and mom cleans your room every day and you're a neat person, but if you don't clean your room every day, maybe you're not a neat person. So make sure you're filling these questionnaires out properly.
And Dave, on the roommate topic, Claire's asking, if we do get a room, when will we get the specific roommate information so we can contact them?
Right away.
Right away.
It'll be on the housing portal at that moment.
Okay, so once you select a room and are solidified in that choice, then you do have access to your roommate's information.
Right. So you can click on the other beds and get information about the other folks and their answers to their questions and so on. And so that's the only bed available in this whole building, is that one green bed. Mm-hmm. And so if I'm good with that, I can select that. Or if I'm like, let me see what else is available, I can go to Cypress C, and now I'll navigate using the menu at the side here. There's one bed available on this floor. You know what? I like the first floor. I'm going to select that bed. Click on it. It says, okay, I've got 5 minutes to make my decision. If this is the room I want, let me just double check some information about the room. So I click on the room, It's an apartment. It's got a kitchen in it. Great, because that's what apartments have. It's called Cypress C single, the unit, and the room number. That gives me some information. Maybe I want a little bit more about the room itself, so I click on the bed space information. Gives me a lot of the same information, but it also tells me how much it costs. So that might be really important if you got some cost conscious or cost needs in the, because everybody wants the best, but maybe they can't afford it. That was me when I went to college. And so I had to pick the best in my price range. So you want to make sure that you can afford what you're picking.
And a question from Denaria, do all the rooms have windows?
All the rooms have windows, yes.
Bedrooms.
Now they may not all pick or look out on a beautiful view. It really depends on where the building is. But most of them have a nice view of either the next building or maybe a grassy quad. It really just depends. Some of them face east, some of them face west.
You can tell all that on the map too if that's something that's
So
important.
if we want, we could go back and pick a different room. And I'm going to go back onto the first floor of Cypress C. And if I look at the map, there usually is a north indicator. So I know that my window is going to be actually in this wall. I just happen to know. So my window is going to look north. What does that really mean? That means that the sun is going to be on the south side, typically. And so it's not the sunny side of the building. And unless my window is facing directly east or directly west, I won't get a lot of morning or evening sun. I'll just get regular sun.
You can tell you answer that type of question a lot.
I do. I do. So I'm going to select that bed again, just so that you can see what happens. Now I have the clock reset because I picked a different room, even though it was the same one.
So when you went back, it was not holding that room anymore. It's when you're
Correct.
on this page that it holds that for you
Right.
for 5 minutes.
And it tells you that right there in the words.
And a question from Bob, will more beds become available for spring 23 if students transfer out of USF in December? Or is
Yes, they will.
It will, but we do know some of those numbers right now, so that
Correct,
includes
yeah.
a little bit of that information.
I think we've already received cancellations from about 50 or 60 graduating students.
Inevitably, there will be more, though, so
Yeah.
that is something to keep in mind.
So this is really important, this next page. We're still under the clock, but this is where I ask you to please review all the information here. Now, it says that you're in a single room. How many people live in a single room? 1. If you picked a room and you thought it was a single room, but it says it's a double room, that means 2 people live in it. So don't be surprised if you see that you have a roommate. You can, again, verify the rate. And this is fairly new in the last year or so. We're going to ask you to reconfirm that you've read the cancellation terms. Why is this important? Because once you select a room, you're basically locking yourself into some sort of fee, whether it's a cancel fee or the room fee. And so we want to make sure that you've read the terms. If you haven't read the terms, you can click this link right here. It'll open up a new window for you to review, and it's just the cancellation section of the housing agreement. And so you can see all the information about what's a viable cancellation request and what is not. So very important to read that. If you haven't read it already, if you have questions and you're not sure, ask before you click this button. Because once you click this button and you click submit, it's going to say, congratulations, you've selected, and now I can click on this link right here, and it goes and actually shows you your roommate, your room assignment, your roommates, and your suite mates. I'm not going to do that because there are people assigned to the other room, and I don't want to do that online.
But I think that's really important, Dave, what you just went over of clicking that agreement and understanding what you're doing, because you are agreeing to live on campus, and the cancellation requirements or the eligibility to cancel now is really just not attending the university or other things. But that is a big thing to keep in mind, so make sure you're reading that thoroughly. So we got a lot of great questions that I want to address here. So I'm going to try to go by topic before we jump into next year and summer. one question from Summer asking about spring room selection. How do we know if we have completed all the requirements for housing?
So there are a variety of different ways. You can go to the housing portal, click under My Applications, and then look at application status, and then select your spring application.
Great. And do we know what housing, so this is going to be moving topics a little bit to next year, but I want to address this question from Dennis. What housing will be offered for Summer C next year? Do we know that yet?
It'll be in the village.
Okay.
Which exact building, I'm not sure, but we are obligated to offer the village until 2026.
Okay, because
spring.
Dennis is also asking,
summer,
will
sorry.
Cypress Apartments be open for Summer C in
Not for Summer C.
2023? So Dennis also asked, why was the application date moved to Thursday from today?
So that's a great question. We have been doing some changes to the agreement language. And so we are, basically we've been listening to people about their comments about trying to make especially our cancellation section clearer. And so we've been working on that language and working on some tweaks to our cancellation process. And so unfortunately we need to, it takes a village and a general counsel when we change contract language or language that essentially looks like a contract. And so in order to get our agreement right, we've had a few revisions, and I actually just spent an hour today with our assistant vice president talking more about it. And so with the elections tomorrow, a lot of people have been busy. And also we were hoping maybe we'll launch it on Thursday, but the next day is a holiday. And so because we're closed on Veterans Day, we want to be there to answer questions if the need arises. And so we didn't want you to have to wait 3-4 days in order to ask a question about the housing application. And so we made the conscious decision to actually move it to the original date we intended to do it all along, which was November 15th.
November 15th. So that is going to be when the fall, spring, 23-24.
Correct.
Housing application opens, as well as the summer 2023 housing
Yes.
application. However, if you are a current student, you will have access to that housing application. But if you are going to be a new student for that term, you will not be able to see that application yet. You won't have access to it.
Right. You'll have access to the housing application once you're an admitted student.
Right. And so those admission decisions, you'll want to apply to the university early, but those admission decisions begin around mid-December.
Correct.
typically.
I believe that's when admissions is releasing them. Always go to their website and double
Yes.
check.
Yeah, I believe that they have more information on their website. So Giovanna, I might have misspoke before. She was asking on the USF website, it says that housing applications open for the fall 2023 on November 15th, but you just said that it will be open in spring 2023. So to clarify, November 15th is when the fall spring housing application opens, but spring of 2023 is when we do the room selection process for fall spring.
Yes.
So in the spring is when people will have access to select their room, just like we showed. But you will be able to apply earlier than that. You want to get all of your applications done early so that you can select your space.
Yeah, it's important to note when you apply and when you pay your application fee, it puts you in line.
Right.
And we will break up right now we are planning, it hasn't been finalized yet, but we are planning 2 room selection processes, one for our continuing students and then one for our new students. And so you want to make sure that your application gets submitted early enough to get you into that early group of selecting students as fast as you can.
And we do have a question here from Kathleen. What does my student need to do in order to secure on-campus housing for next year? So let's talk about steps and timeline, because I know
Okay.
that's really important looking forward.
So I'm going to guess that they're already here.
I'm
Okay.
not sure.
I'm going to start with the process. I'm a continuing student. I'm already here at the university, whether I live on campus or not, right now. What are my steps to get housing on campus for fall of 23 and spring of 24? The steps are if you're already here at USF, you're already admitted student, you're already taking classes, you can start applying November 15th at 12 a.m.
Okay. That answers another question. 12 a.m.
So, hey, I'm telepathic.
Mm-hmm.
I love that movie. So if you apply on November 15th, your application fee will show up as early as later that day or the following day. And then once you make your payment, we will mark the day that you made your payment. So if your fee shows up at 10 a.m. on or 2 p.m. on the 15th, and you make your payment that day on the 15th, remember to pay the fee, not just a general $50 payment into your account, because if you don't what we call line pay or direct that payment toward the application fee, it will go towards something else. So you want to make sure you do that. So if you apply the 15th, you pay on the 15th, then you're in line as of the 15th. And so that gets you in line. You already have your orientation and you're already taken care of because you're a student here at the university already. And so ideally, you will be in the first group of students to select in late February for your room in the fall.
And that is for current
students of the university, whether it be fall or spring.
Okay. And then for FTICs, new transfer students coming in for either the summer or the fall, spring, what is different about that process? What are those dates?
So for our incoming students for the summer, fall, and spring, well, summer or fall of next year.
And that is a question if they're two separate housing applications.
They are.
Which is super important to keep in mind.
We'll go over that in just a minute. If you're an incoming student for the summer or fall, you won't be able to actually submit your housing application until you are an admitted student. So once you get that notification from admissions, whether it's by email or letter, hopefully you're checking your email. Check your email in mid-December. Matter of fact, you should check your email every day regardless. Mm-hmm. Your admissions email and your USF email, because if you've already submitted your admission, your application for admission to the university, more than likely you've been able to set up your university email as well. So you want to make sure that you are checking all your email accounts as soon as you get admitted. If you're worried about housing, as soon as you get admitted, submit your housing application. We will know the next day that you've been admitted, and you'll be in our system and you'll be eligible to select a room. Or, I'm sorry, to apply.
Right.
Selection is in March.
Okay. And for the FTIC transfer?
Correct.
What time will the fall 2023 application open?
12 a.m.
12 a.m. Same with, okay, yeah. We
Same
already
with
answered that. How much is the fee? And if we decide to live off campus, is the fee all we lose?
Great question. That's why it's important to read and understand all the rules that comes with your power tool. No. Read and understand the cancellation fee or cancellation terms of the agreement. So if you apply, it's a $50 non-refundable application fee for housing for each application that you put in. So the question earlier was, are they multiple applications? Summer is a different application than fall. There's only one exception for that, and that's if you're admitted into the SSS program. You will know if you're admitted into that, and it'll be the only application you can see. And so once you submit your housing application, you'll be charged that fee to your account. You'll have to pay that fee.
For both. If you want to do summer and fall, spring, one $50 for summer and one $50 for fall, spring.
Right, if you're here for summer. Now, that's the only thing you're on the hook for until you select your room. Once you select your room, that's when all the other cancellation terms come into play.
Okay.
So then you need to have a valid reason based on the criteria in our cancellation section of our agreement in order to be able to cancel. I changed my mind is not a reason to cancel. Now, I believe that we've added a short time frame, and I'm waiting for the final, but a short time frame for you to have changed your mind. We're talking a
This
day
is
or
breaking
two.
news, folks.
A day or two.
I did not know
Basically,
this.
a buyer's remorse clause. I made a mistake. I think you'll have 24 to 48 hours to make a change.
Great.
It's to cancel it with no fee,
Okay.
except for the $50.
Right.
Now, make sure you're reading the terms of the agreement. That's one of the things that we listen to people about.
Right. And it will be different if you go to the housing agreement right now, just for context, it's not going to be there.
It will not be
This
in
will be
there right
something
now.
new.
Correct.
I'm going to pivot back to a question that was asked in the beginning of the broadcast from Dennis asking, the same person asking about the Cypress apartments being open for summer C. We know that's not the case, but if they've got the same room for fall, spring 23-24 as their summer C space, would they need to move everything out, or would they be able to leave their stuff?
You would have the opportunity. So let's say
And how likely is that? We should
Let's
also,
say Endeavor is the building that's open. It was open last summer. And you're in Endeavor for fall, spring right now. And you have the same room for summer. You can elect to do what we call break stay, which is you don't have to move out. You can leave your belongings there and you can come and go as you please. We don't have an option for, I just want to leave my belongings.
right.
It's either break stay or you have to move out and then move back in a week later.
And you pay the nightly fee of the room.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is, break stay is only the case if you are assigned in the same space, or can you move your items to your new space early?
You can break stay if you have a spring assignment and a summer assignment, or a summer to fall. We offer a break stay for each in-between time. The only time we don't offer a break stay to everybody is fall to spring, because we don't have every building open.
Right. Okay. Thank you for the clarification on that. So, and also, Dennis asked for us to repeat what we said about the availability of Cypress apartments over the summer. Do you have any information?
Cypress will not be available over summer C,
Summer C.
for sure.
So Kim is asking, do you get a refund of your housing application if you don't get in? But if you need to be accepted to the university.
Don't get into the university. I'm going to assume don't get into housing.
Okay, but to clarify, in order to apply for housing, you
You're
need
in.
to be admitted to the university.
Correct.
So,
The only exception is if, for some reason, your admission is rescinded. That
Okay.
does happen occasionally, but not very often. So if you don't get into housing, we have some steps that you'd have to do. Those who join the standby list, and if you still can't get into housing off the standby list, we do refund the $50. If you're not on the standby list, but you just change your mind about housing, then you don't get the $50 back.
should spring 2023 admits go ahead and apply and pay their $50 application fee on the 15th for fall spring?
You can.
If they are, yeah.
If you know you want housing for fall of 2023, go right ahead.
Yeah, it's actually encouraged because, like we were talking about, the sooner that you apply and pay the $50 application fee, the sooner that you get in line for room selection. Which,
Right. Remember, you don't have to live on campus to be in continuing student. That's why we call it continuing student and not continuing resident room
Right.
selection. Because maybe you didn't have an opportunity to get onto campus like a number of our students this fall, and so they're living off campus and they're in a lease. And so maybe their goal is to live on campus next year, and so it would be a great idea for them or for an incoming student to start the process as soon as they can.
And Summer is asking, if I applied for housing very early but have yet to pay the fee, does that mean I will get in line once I pay the fee?
Yes.
Okay.
So like I said, we have over 700 applications in hand, but only just over 400 emails are going out, because that means there are over 300 people that have not completed either the orientation or the payment step of the application.
And Sonia's asking, will housing applications for the spring 2023 open back up?
It really depends on what's happening with the standby list. When we get down to very few rooms and we shut down room selection, which I highly anticipate will happen after the first day. I'll just be very honest and open with that. Especially if you're a male, you may not have, there are less male beds available than female beds. It's just the way it happened. Based on what I remember from the first group of 100 people, most of them are female, so there might be a good shot for those men to get some of the few remaining male beds that are available. Once we examine where everything is, you can always contact our office if housing is a must, and we'll see what we can do. But I can't G word again, guarantee that we're going to be able to open it. But we are always listening. We actually have a list of people who still want to apply. And so we actively add people to that list every day. And it's not that we don't want to house you. We want to house everybody that wants housing, but we're not in a position to triple up doubles, double up singles, rent spaces off campus. Off campus is looking very full as well. And so it's a time when I think many of you who we're talking to in the audience have been at home now for maybe up to 2 years taking your classes, and you want to get away. Problem is, all of your cohort want to get away, and this isn't a USF problem. I just spent 2 days at meetings with institutions around the state, and we're all having this problem.
And, I think that that's really important, what you mentioned about individualized assistance for certain circumstances. It's definitely important that you communicate with the housing office about those types of things if you do have a unique circumstance. And you can email us, call us, or even walk in during our business hours. So there's...
And our business hours did change. We're at 9 to 4 now. We're trying to use that extra time in the beginning and end of the day to try and process through the various requests that we get. And so, but our phones are open 9 to 4. Walk-in hours are 9 to 4. You can make an appointment from 8 to 5. We do see people in the first hour and the last hour, but it's usually by appointment. And of course, you can always email us at housing@usf.edu, and we'll get to you as soon as we can. And the turnaround's been, now that we're out of the summer rush, the turnaround's been typically within a day.
You better knock on wood, you're about to get very busy.
It's going to get very busy next week, and we're ramping up for it.
You're ready.
Staff's trying to get themselves mentally ready. Hey, luckily we have a 3-day weekend for some of our staff. I have an interrupted 2-day weekend, but hopefully that'll give them the energy
in the mental space
to
Got it.
persevere.
Okay, well, we have a little time left, so I'm going to ask some more specific questions that have come from the audience. Jackie is asking, is there still an early move-in option for spring, and when will that application become available?
Sure, the early move-in request form will be available also beginning on the 14th, because we figured we'd wait, since most of the people who want to move in early are new admits and new assignments. We wait to actually launch that process on the beginning of room selection. So that should also launch on Monday at midnight.
Great. And I think that we have some viewers that are jumping in maybe a little bit later in the broadcast asking specifics about spring admits in the email process. So right when this broadcast is finished, in a few minutes, you actually will be able to go and restart the whole thing from the beginning and hear everything we talked about in the beginning about the spring admit process, or I'm sorry, the spring housing application process and the room selection process that's coming up next week. So Jennifer's asking, how do we go about getting on the standby list if we don't get housing? Is there very little chance of getting housing from the standby list?
So the standby list it's a very much a fluid process. In the fall, we were able to take care of all the requests on the standby list. Either the student made a decision to take themselves off the list because they found something off campus, or we were able to give them housing. So we were very successful. We're prepping this week the process for standby next week. And so We could be sending out that information as early as Monday evening or Tuesday morning about how to join the standby list because we ran out of beds. The standby list, basically, the process for that is essentially you add yourself to the standby list, and by doing so, you're basically saying, I'll accept anything you can give me. And so your name comes up. Let's say you're the first female on the list. We have a female opening that happens. We say, here's your room. We email you with that information saying this is the room that we've gotten for you. So you can now rest assured that you have a room. Just because you join the list does not guarantee that you're going to get a room.
Correct. And Stephen's asking, will my daughter be able to select a specific person to be her roommate for spring 23 housing? So what we call roommate groups.
Yeah. The likelihood of having more than a handful of empty rooms is not very good. And so, or units with more than one bedroom available or bed available in it. And so we did not do roommate groups this year. However, when your student selects a room, if their friend is also in that time frame, they can then go in right after you're done and select the other part of that unit. Right. Whether an apartment or a suite or whatever.
But just based on availability that we're talking
it's
about,
going to be difficult.
A space to have 2 beds open in it to begin
Very
with
rare.
is going to be rare. You know, it's a different story for summer and fall, spring. We have what's called roommate groups, which you can learn about on our website, where you can go and form a group with somebody ahead of time, and then one person in the group will select on behalf of the group.
But we're actually looking at ways to reward people for getting roommate
You're
groups.
given all sorts of like Easter eggs and previews to information. You heard it here. You have to tune into our lives to hear, secret information.
Live and and then we'll have more Q&As.
We will.
We love our Q&As. We get great viewership on these because it's timely and just what you need at the moment.
And live, which is fun. So when will we know next year's housing rental rates? Good question.
You'll know before room selection.
Yeah. Necessary.
But I believe that I hope before the end of the term that we can announce those. I don't even know what the suggested rates will be yet. And so I can't even leave an Easter egg for that one.
Yeah.
But I would anticipate that there will be a increase, but whether or not every room increases, I don't know. Whether or not it's just particular rooms, that remains to be seen. But as soon as we know and we can release the information, you'll know.
And for the fall 2023, when do we need to pay the application deposit for current students living in dorms?
So for fall 2023, you'll pay the application fee after your student submits the application. So my suggestion is don't wait, because remember that puts you into line. So it goes back to what we talked about earlier in the show. For you to better your chances, you want to apply early and pay your application fee early.
Okay. And let's see here. Maybe I'm not sure what the COSO Community Scholarship is, but Min asks, if I'm a current freshman, am I eligible to apply for the COSO Community Scholarship? I know about the Housing Scholarship, but
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I'm not sure what.
That'd be a great one to call in and ask us about, and then maybe we can do some research.
Yes, and we can respond over Facebook once I do a little digging on that one. But I will give a shout out to our housing scholarship that opens up at the end of the year. The applications run from December to May, and current residents are eligible to apply for that. So keep an eye out on the website because that information will be up in the next month or so. Danielle's asking a follow-up on something we said that maybe we misspoke, but what are the earmarked students? What does that mean? Can you please explain? I don't know if we use that term. We might have sounded like that when we were giving our roommate group discussion, what that meant, like the rewarding of being in a roommate group. But because it came in right after that.
Okay.
But just to clarify or to expand on that.
Okay. So we're looking at having, for fall and summer, when we're using roommate groups again, we're looking at the idea of providing a time for people with roommate groups to possibly select earlier. Because what we encountered a lot this past year is that we would have people they formed groups of 4 people, but there wasn't a unit left that could hold 4 people. There was like 1 person in a 4-person apartment all over the place. And so they're like, there are no 4-person apartments left. I'm like, there's lots of apartments left, just not for 4 people. And so we're looking at the idea of how do we merge the idea of I applied early with I also did my due diligence and got a roommate group. And so maybe I have a group of 5 people. We have 5-person apartments in Kosovo. And so whoever's got the best time can select for all 5. And so maybe one of them's in group 1 and they can go in and select for themselves and their 4 other members of their roommate group and secure that 5-person apartment for them right out of the gate. And same thing for 4-person, and same thing for 3-person, and then when we get down to 2, it's kind of just a room. But really trying to figure out a way to, and again, we haven't finalized any of our information yet, but these are some of the things that we're thinking about to try and make room selection better for all of you. Because we know that if people choose themselves as roommates, typically those work even better than the dreaded random. Even though probably 95% of the time, random roommates work out just fine.
The best. Still besties with
I
my
had
random
randoms
roommates.
my whole life, and I'm still friends, and I still get Christmas cards and birth announcements for and maybe second wedding announcements.
You only hear from the horror stories, right? That people, and we could have a whole discussion about this.
You could write books about the horror stories.
Well, you hear about those because people, it's a big story to tell, but you don't hear all the time about the success stories, which, like you said, 99% of
90 to 95. I say 99.
I would say 99.
I've been in this longer than she has. It's not 99.
For me personally, my personal experiences, I'm still really close with a lot of the randoms that I was roomed with, and it's a great opportunity just to expand your horizons too.
And with any roommate group, the important thing is be willing to compromise. It can't always be your way or the highway. It doesn't matter if you selected the room first. You're both going to be living there, or more of you are going to be living there, depending on what kind of unit you pick, whether it's a room or an apartment or a suite. It's all of you are going to have to figure out how to live together.
Yeah.
And I've seen best friends from home hate each other after 3 weeks. And so even the best friends from home don't always work. So just have an open mind when you're meeting your roommate, and don't just try to lay out the law.
Flexibility is definitely key. Okay, let's get through a couple more.
All right.
And then we'll call it a night, because I know we're going up on an hour here. So talking about the rates for different rooms, Charles is asking, are the rates for different rooms listed somewhere for spring 2023 before room selection opens?
They're listed right now on
They're
our
website.
rates page. Yep. Under resources, rates, I believe.
Hall rates.
And it'll be fall 23, spring 24. No, I'm sorry.
There's a spring 23
fall
only.
22,
Yeah.
spring 23.
Yes.
We haven't gotten to 23, 24 yet.
And then what's the earliest we can pay for the fall 2023 housing application deposit? That is going to be
right after you be within a business day of your application.
Housing application, which opens November 15th.
November 15th if you're a continuing student.
Continuing. And then for new students,
After
like we
your
said
admission.
early, once you're admitted to the university, you will have access to the housing portal.
Correct.
And so there's a couple questions about this just to summarize all of the dates. Let's talk about, Dennis is specifically asking, when is summer room selection? So I know we don't have exact dates right now, but we're coming up on the fall spring housing application opening, and summer opening on November 15th. Then that is for current students, will have access to it on that date. Incoming students will have access once they're admitted to the university.
Which will occur sometime in December or
It will
after.
be the beginning of it, yes. February is when current students typically get access to room selection.
Correct.
We don't have dates solidified at this point. They will be on our website. March is when incoming students will typically get access to room selection. And that is not only for fall, spring, but also summer that all this happens.
Summer is a separate selection process, technically. But we'll try to have summer. Usually summer occurs about a week after new student selection begins for fall. So we actually do summer after fall to give people an opportunity to try and get the same room for summer that they have for fall.
Got it. Okay. And when does the email come out for spring students to pick their room?
As soon as I get home tonight.
Dave's going to be working late tonight to get that email out, and that's to USF email, so be sure that your students check that out. And last question to confirm, when we apply for housing, do we also select our meal plan?
You do select your meal plan at the same time.
Perfect. And there are different options to that, and you can read more about that on the dining website. And just make sure that you read through all of that and see what is going to be the best for your students' needs. Because if they have a kitchen in their apartment, maybe they don't need as many meal swipes.
Unless they don't know how to cook.
So they don't want to
There is
cook.
that.
I had an apartment, and I had the biggest meal plan because I wasn't going to be cooking in my apartment. So it's just based on the student, really. So just know your needs. I think you can always upgrade. You can change your meal plan, or you can downgrade too within the first week of.
I would just talk to dining about
Talk
what
to
your
dining.
options
Let's
are.
not- yeah.
We don't manage dining, so we don't want to overstep our bounds and
True.
say something that isn't exactly accurate. And again, depending on what term you're looking at, it may be changing between now
That's
and the
true.
fall.
So always going to the website is a good idea to see the upcoming
and there'll be an
agreements.
agreement for that too. So you can also read that.
And in Housing Live, we'll have dining come on the show, so we can talk to them more.
We do.
Yes, we
I
have
hope they
dining.
bring treats.
You know, now that we're in person, they may.
Mm.
It's been years.
At least some coffee.
Coffee would be nice, except, you know, I don't know if it's a late show, so me personally, I don't touch caffeine after 3 p.m.
I'll drink yours.
Okay, I'll save you my coffee. All right, so Dave, we've had a lot of great engagement tonight, so thank you to everyone who's tuned in and asked your questions. But this isn't your only opportunity to get your questions answered. Dave, how can folks get a hold of your office if they have additional questions?
Well, you can always email us at housing@usf.edu. You can do that anytime, day or night, but we will probably only answer during the day. However, you can also call our office, walk into our office, or boy, those are all the options. You can do that Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. You can also make an appointment with us if you need to come in before 9 or after 4. So between the hours of 8 and 5, we can set appointments as well.
Yep, and all of that information's on our website. So thank you again, Dave, so much for being here tonight. And thank you again to everyone who's watching. And we are so excited to hopefully have you on campus soon. Go Bulls!